Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. The United States is withdrawing from at least 66 international organizations and scaling back its engagement with international legal frameworks, even as it relies more heavily on sanctions and power politics, from Venezuela and Greenland to climate policy in Russia. This signals a notable shift from Washington's historic role as a pillar of the UN-based international order, prompting questions about where this leaves allies and whether the rules-based system itself is changing. Now, to explore this all further, I'm joined by Professor Tomasz Płudowski, Associate Professor at Vizja University. Good to have you back on TVP World. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Professor, let me begin with some of the latest. We've had this new idea, the sanctions toolbox from the United States, 500%. This apparently, just recap quickly, supported also and co-written by a Republican Senator, Mr. Graham, who said that the White House and Donald Trump is on board. Now, last night, or rather on Thursday on Fox News, there was an interview with President Trump, and he said that he is very much, and I'm quoting here, they want to do it, it's at my discretion, and, you know, I support it, I hope we won't have to use it. So where are we with this? Are these sanctions going to go ahead? Are they not? How do we interpret the latest from President Trump?
I don't know that we're ever going to know what's going to happen with Donald Trump, and he certainly goes back on a lot of promises. You cannot. I think it's part of his strategy. Part of it is that he doesn't go very much into detail on a lot of the policies. A lot of the decisions, especially the detailed decisions, he leaves to the people around him. For example, when asked about Venezuela, who was going to run the country, one of them said they are going to run the country. The other one said they were not going to govern the country. Then he said the people behind me are going to do this. So unfortunately, this is the way he communicates. I mean, he likes to be in the center. He certainly takes a lot of time, but we cannot be certain, 100% certain that something is going to happen, especially the way he says it's going to happen. For example, he has this strategy or tactics maybe, like in negotiations where he starts very high. Here, he usually starts by threatening Mamdani or New York or whoever, and then he very often goes back on his promises and he ends up with amicable relations. So I don't think that we can be certain of anything. He except maybe a couple of things, that he certainly does not want to cooperate very closely with Europe. We cannot be certain about what he's going to do with Russia. He certainly does not like international organizations. He wants to make as many decisions as possible within the U.S., not certainly by himself, but he certainly does not want to cooperate with Democrats. He often goes back to Biden, drawing a striking difference between himself and the other party, and so on and so forth. And he will certainly raise issues such as Canada, Panama, Greenland, so issues related to other countries, usually smaller countries or large territories, but not very powerful militarily or otherwise in the region, in the Western Hemisphere, to suggest that the U.S. should have a stake there, should be able to run things or at least influence things.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of
how it's going to go in detail, it's certainly far from clear.
Sure. We know that it's not clear, but at the same time, these indications, I mean, as you said already, this is a president who says one thing, who changes his mind. It's a kind of, this 500%, I mean, this is something unprecedented. The amount of it would be huge if it's actually real, and if he's going to use it. I mean, this would really hit powerful countries, as you said. This would be India, Russia, China to a large extent as well. So in this whole mix, is this, do you think, a kind of tactic of his? Is he really going to pull the trigger here? Because, I mean, we were talking about the same thing with secondary sanctions, which he eventually did set off against Russia some time ago. So is this, do you see this more as a tactic, or is he warning them? Is he more emboldened? What he's done in the last few days? Where do we stand? And what about Russia's reaction to all this? Do they see this as a threat?
Well, it's certainly not clear. I mean, I don't think it's we're in a position to tell. He's going to try, like in negotiations, he's going to try to get as much as possible, and he certainly has been able and willing to attack with even with tariffs other countries than Russia. It wasn't very successful, and he actually drew those countries like India away from the U.S. and away from this international order-based or rules-based order, away from the U.S. towards Russia, as in case of China or India. So he has been counterproductive, I would say, to a large extent. Although what he did in Venezuela obviously hit both China and Russia to a certain extent. I think they were both surprised. Maybe that's why he did not want to release any information even to Congress, although he should, by law, within 48 hours of using the military abroad, and he still hasn't done that. So I think he's going to try to make his own rules and be unpredictable and be the one that the world fears, and his image is in the center of all this. His image personally and the image of America as a country that has to be feared. Again, if you remember at the beginning of this last conference after Venezuela, Pete Hegseth, he started with the words, "Welcome to 2026, America is back." So it is to a certain extent to them like a Hollywood movie, and they want to make a strong statement, and they want America to be respected. I mean, you see that even in his slogan. I mean, it's obviously not clear and how it's going to be evaluated and how it's going to end up. I'm afraid that he's not going to have as many successes as he thinks he is, and he's going to dismantle the old rule-based order, but in its place, we're going to see something much less stable and predictable and much more short-lived.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it does sound like the word we often use, mercurial. I mean, it's a system that has existed as well, rules-based order, since the end of World War II. At the same time, I still want to press you on what you think Russia's response to all this is. And we've seen just within the last 24 hours as well, the Russians protesting the seizure of that tanker. But in the end, that was what was it. It was just a voice of protest. Is this somehow activating? Is this somehow affecting Vladimir Putin's calculus? How is he interpreting all this? Is this a message to him? Will he be more, let's say, amicable on any sort of ceasefire or other dealings with the United States and the Europeans?
He certainly hasn't taken a strong stand against the United States. I mean, we haven't seen Trump criticize Putin as strongly, and he has criticized his allies even, especially European ones, or Kim in Korea. And Putin also has been less than radically aggressive towards the U.S. So I think they both sides take a very amicable stand, and they do not want to escalate things. And we'll see. We'll see whether this division, kind of the spheres of influence between the U.S. and Russia and China in the world how it will play itself out. I don't see this happening long term. After a lot of analysts say that this is the new beginning, the new reality. I don't see the Democrats running this kind of policy where they completely forget international law, and we already see this in, for example, with Holland, that has kind of navigated or helped the U.S. in the Caribbean, and has resigned from doing so, saying or using the division into the Western and the Eastern Hemisphere, the kind of the Monroe Doctrine, because it's not really the Monroe Doctrine. At best, Donroe, where again Trump is in the center, saying it's up to you, it's your area, we don't want to be involved in that. But in reality, they don't want to be involved with that because it's against international law and they don't want to break it. And obviously, Greenland would be the end of NATO. I mean, if the U.S. attacked Greenland with the military, that would be the end of NATO, because an attack on one country one NATO member, is an attack on all of them, and the U.S. is obviously part of NATO, so
yeah. But on that, on spheres of influence,
like the U.S. attacking itself.
Yeah, but on that spheres of influence that you mentioned, Professor, I want to ask you also really quickly, I'm conscious of the time, one area of influence, and this is an interesting one as well, with Iran. I mean, this is a country that has also been very close with China, with Russia. Again, this is now, again, turning, something is happening. We've seen these now over the last few hours, really, total internet blackout. We're hearing in Iran, protesters on the street. What do you make of this latest move? Is this also because of what Trump has said and done in the last days? He said he would support the protests. Is this something that is going in a different direction, or is this just temporary?
Well, obviously, the conflict is the internal conflict. The conflict of values is there. Historically speaking, we've had also a conflict between Iran and the United States. And what I'm more afraid of is the world in which in the direction of which Trump is going. So, in other words, a lot of regional conflicts, and despite what he said in the campaign, where he was advocating peace and saying that the U.S. should refrain from being involved in the world, he's actually creating a world in which more and more conflicts are arising, and the U.S. is involved in more and more conflicts. So if he engages the U.S. in the Western Hemisphere in several conflicts, obviously Russia might use this opportunity to attack another country, even a NATO country, for example, one of the Baltic republics. China might attack Taiwan, and Israel may attack Iran, and we have a sort of a world war. So this is a reality that we have to think about, and this is a possibility, unfortunately, because the U.S. is not capable of running two large wars. And obviously, to end this matter, this is not Monroe Doctrine, because the U.S. is still involved outside the Western Hemisphere. It has bases in Europe and in Asia.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, we'll have to see if he makes it, as you said, the Monroe Doctrine. We'll see how, if and how that works out. Look, really interesting insights. Always a pleasure speaking to you. That was our guest here this morning, Tomasz Płudowski, professor at Vizja University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.